Adam, what are you listening to?
Nothing.
Well, you should be listening to something, like our podcast. If you like Hot Take, you can listen to Hot Take exactly like this, but in podcast form. Head to patreon.com/Rerez and find a bunch of free links to listen to our podcast, and they're also ad-free as well.
Why would I want to listen to us?
Hello, game developer.
Mr. Microsoft!
Would you like to make a video game with unlimited funds?
Yes, of course I would!
And scene.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening with Microsoft right now.
Yep, they're going to be making a bunch of games, and they're going to be giving a whole bunch of money to make it happen.
Hot Take.
Cheesy skit aside, that was a real conversation that apparently has been going down with Microsoft and the developers that they just purchased.
It's not very often that Shane uses his real accent in the beginning of a video.
I usually just hear this all the time, but we really got to talk about this because this is big news. Typically, when game companies get purchased by another developer or a producer
a big
or whatever,
company or whatever,
they go, hey, the next game you want to make, we're going to fund it, whatever it is.
And here's your restrictions.
Yes, that. Okay, this is what happens. You hear about the restrictions. Here's your funding limit, your people limit, because there is a limit of how many people a company can hire because, you know, there's insurance costs and
so many
salaries.
things you have to consider,
But what Microsoft just did was like, hey, you want to make a game? Whatever it is. Here's what's going down. Now, we first heard about this from a podcast from Boogie2988.
Yes, the podcast is, I think it's the Untitled Podcast. They don't have a title for their podcast yet. It's episode 2. And they were talking about how at E3, Boogie had approached, it was the Xbox corporate vice president, it is Mike Ybarra is his name. And he said, hey, you guys have been buying up a lot of companies, what's going on? And Mike Ybarra basically said that they went to the developers and they said, hey, what games do you want to make? And the dev teams had said, well, what's our budget? And then Microsoft said, I didn't ask you what budget you were looking for, what games do you want to make? Blank check.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. Now, we're playing a game of telephone here. What we heard off the BoogieCast, we're going to call it BoogieCast from here on out. By the way, you can use that. Yeah, that's free, right? That's yours. But what you really should do is think about this. We've heard this from one source going to another person. So, like I said, we're playing a game of telephone here. We don't know what the exact messaging was, but the idea of what the messaging is apparently is that, whatever the amount of money you need to make anything you want, your dream project, we're going to make it happen. Now, this is something that Adam and I have been talking about a lot because we saw Microsoft announce a big batch of purchases over at E3, and most recently they got Obsidian as well.
Obsidian and In Exile. We can't forget, 2 more prominent studios. So we wanted to sit down today and look at some of the studios, what they've worked on, and what their blank check could be, or what we would like to see from the companies, rather. You know, if there's no limitations, I mean, sky's the limit. What could they do?
There's a lot of things, because these companies are not just any companies. They're talented folks with huge backgrounds in game development. Now, we thought that it would be really cool to sit down and look at every individual company and theorize what kind of games they could produce with unlimited funds.
Unlimited funds.
Yeah.
So Playground Games is one of the studios that was purchased by Microsoft. We assumed that they were worth Microsoft for the longest time because these are the developers of the Forza Horizon series, right? They've basically been making games for Microsoft for a very long time.
Yes, sir. Quite a few.
They've been scooped up, but instead of making a car game... I guess they're still making the Horizon series.
They're still doing Horizon.
But there's another section of Playground that's making another game.
Yes.
A lot of people have rumored that it is the next Fable 4. So, like, this is one of the more difficult developers to kind of... like sink our teeth into exactly what they're gonna be doing because
it's just Fable 4 with cars.
Yeah,
no, that's not what it's gonna be.
All we've seen from them is racing games and car games.
Yes.
So it's really difficult to make that forecast. I wanted to get this out of the way because this is one of the more complex sort of ideas. Right?
What we've heard is that whatever their next game is, or the one that they're working on as the side project to the Forza series, is not a car game. That's very specific. If it's going to be Fable 4, 4. I think that's a pretty good idea there.
Yeah.
The original Fable creators, I don't believe.
No.
Yeah,
it's Lionhead Studios, right?
Yeah.
And no, they're no longer making Fable games.
Right. So we don't really. I mean, if we're, I can't imagine that Microsoft would want to let the Fable series just die, because that is a pretty interesting series.
Yeah.
A lot of promises. Sometimes it didn't always work out.
Okay, so here's the thing. If we want to talk about predictions, and you seem to be going along this line, if they're going to be making the new Fable game, make it what people always expected it to be, where there are things that you do within the game that have a far wider reach later in the game.
Sure.
So that's always been a thing that's really stuck out to me. The Peter Molyneux, you plant this seed and it grows into a tree, and if you etch your name into the tree, it's in there, but it's older. Like
Sure.
Okay, maybe not all of what I just said. I mean, was what he said.
Look. What I would want from a Fable game is this. Use the same world, okay, the same universe that we've had all the other Fable games in, but none of the same characters. I mean, that's typically how the Fable games go. They don't really follow on with the older games and stuff like that.
It's mostly like an art style,
yeah,
like a style of gameplay, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. One, if we're gonna have another Fable game, I don't want it to be ultra realistic. I don't want it to try and become Skyrim. I do want an open world game, but only to necessitate the idea of doing those things where one action changes things dramatically.
I think I agree with you. We don't need the open world game that's, this is really 30 kilometers of space where you can walk around. It's like, well, make it as big as you need it to be, but make it so that you can meet those expectations that we had from the very first Fable game back in the day.
And, honestly, a lot of the games I've been playing lately that have open world elements that feature the ability to be good or evil, the storyline doesn't really change that much. You go in one direction, you go the other, and nothing really is just moving in a big direction. I would very much like an open world experience, a Fable 4, to be something that I could probably complete, let's just say in a week, but... And I know that sounds crazy. I'm saying like maybe 5 hours a day gameplay, something like that in a week. I know that's not a massive game, but I want there to be so many changes in the game world that I'm actively going back to want to play the game again, to play it in a bunch of different ways. Yeah. Usually when a game is way too big, it's so daunting and hard to actually get everything that you want to do and try it again. Right now I'm going through Red Dead Redemption 2 right now. Once I'm done Red Dead Redemption 2's single-player story, I'm never going back. We'll cover that on another episode, but when it comes to something like for the Fable series, it's all about being good and evil. That's always been the dynamic and that balance.
I would even say, I would even take a shorter experience. Give me like a 10-hour experience, but the differences are so very drastic that not only do you want to come back, but you need to get every little plot element.
Yes.
So maybe there's something that happens when you're a good person that, okay, this person branches off and this NPC branches off and does something really great because of what you did. But if you want to see what happens if you don't do things a certain way. Like the Elder Scrolls games have kind of done that, but in a very limited scope. I want to see kind of like what Mass Effect was rumored to be doing, where
that's it.
The branches grow, right? And there's some distance there. And I don't need a 20 or 30 hour game to see those branches grow. I want to have like a 10-hour experience that I want to keep coming back to, right?
This is exactly what I'm talking about. A 10-hour experience that keeps evolving every time you go back into a completely different way. I want to play one time as a farmer who doesn't really affect anything but the food delivery for one township or something like that. I want to be able to play again and affect the political system. I want to play it again and have the town destroyed by a fire. I want to go back and do different things again and again. And that's what would make a game like this so fun. Not make it long in scope, but make it long in terms of gameplay so that you want to replay it again and again. Yep. And look, nowadays we're dealing with things like Minecraft and Fable, or not Fable, sorry,
Elder Scrolls?
Elder Scrolls games and stuff like that, where you can go back and change little things. With Minecraft, you can go back and play it a million times and it's always going to be different. I would very much like to see Fable done in the same way. Maybe it's like a random generated world where every time you go back, everything's in a different place.
Could be, yeah.
And you have to go experience it again. Yeah. But that experience is, you know what, maybe like a roguelike Fable.
That'd be cool too.
Right?
Sure. Roguelike elements, for sure. I do feel like, as far as open world sandboxes are concerned, I'm fatigued.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of people are fatigued. So yeah, drawing in a lot of those components into like one just like meaty sort of like core land where you can do a bunch of stuff and see all the different reactions and things.
Yeah,
is
and like every time you play it, you get more features and abilities so that it can change the things that go along.
Yeah.
I just like that idea of every time you play the game, you already know the world, you're more familiar with it, and it gets better and better as you go.
There's a game, the Nonary games, you know, the visual novel.
Yeah.
There's a way that you can like branch off and do different things, but there's also a way that you can like skip chapters and like, okay, well, I want to do those same things, but I want to do it different here. And they have a way that you can skip like segments of the game. I wonder if like that could be incorporated somehow into Fable.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm thinking about here. Obviously, there's a chance they don't do anything we just talked about, but I think a Fable game coming from them, because they've been so focused on that one aspect. And you know what? The only thing that they're taking from the Forza games to this is definitely the open world scope, I think. Because I can't imagine they make a Fable game and not include a traversable world.
All car people.
Maybe
a car with a sword.
Maybe.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
Another one of the dev teams that was picked up is Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory is responsible for games like Hellblade, Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, Heavenly Sword, and DMC.
Yes.
Devil May Cry.
Now this team is really, really good.
Yes.
I cannot even believe that Microsoft managed to get Ninja Theory the way they did. But let me tell you, folks, whatever game they do next, you got to imagine that Hellblade was done on a budget, like a very limited budget with a small team.
They called that a AA game.
Yeah.
Where, they wanted the final look of a AAA game, but they had like a smaller team and a smaller budget, and it still looked wonderful.
Yeah, the game had a massive impact.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been claiming it to be one of the best games released of that year.
Right. When I think of Ninja Theory, I think of games that, one, have really compelling combat, and two, have a pretty cool narrative and neat characters. So whatever they do with their blank check, I would want to see that embraced more. I would love to see them like maintain the sort of hand-to-hand combat that we've seen in a lot of their games, combo-driven and stuff. But whereas we were having like a sort of tighter experience with Fable, I'd love to see them kind of open up a little bit more, because a lot of their games have been kind of streamlined, straightforward experiences. The thought that came into my mind when I was like, what would I like to see from this dev team, was taking a bit of Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, like almost like you're a bounty hunter going out hand-to-hand combat, you're making your own sort of stories, and it could be a Wild West sort of scenario or like sci-fi, whatever. You're collecting and like collecting bounties and stuff, and just enjoying the progression of your character, little story of your character, you know, get in there, and then the hand-to-hand combat, upgrading all those systems and stuff, all the cool combos and moves that Ninja Theory is known for.
But what I would like to see on top of that is the story elements and the character designs being worked together with Andy Serkis. Now, see,
that's a good point.
These folks at Ninja Theory have worked with Andy Serkis a bunch of times, but when you got a budget that you can be expansive.
Really quick, who is
Andy Serkis is a very popular character actor and actor in general, and just creator in general. Yeah. And he's mostly known as Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Yes, and he's also Caesar from
Planet of the Apes. He was King Kong in the King Kong reboot.
Yeah, he is the actual performer that works behind the scenes to make those characters so lifelike.
Yeah. Motion capture.
Yeah, and motion capture is a very difficult thing, but he understands the technology behind it, understands what it takes to perform in that regard. But on top of that, he is also a really good actor just by itself. I've seen him in a bunch of performances. He's really, really good. And if you've ever seen Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, or Heavenly Sword, he's got characters in there, and they are amazing performances, and it really stands out.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd like to. I'd like to see him involved.
You just want to see Andy Serkis back with that team. Well, if they have a blank check, getting someone like Andy Serkis is
established relationship. They know what he likes. He knows what they like.
One thing that we're beginning to see more within the industry, but Andy Serkis has kind of had in my mind since the very beginning of his work in video games, is that he respects video games and he treats it like any other acting role very seriously, and he just does a fantastic job.
Realistically, folks, I would like to see this happen because I believe Ninja Theory is at such an amazing space to make these great character piece games. If you had something like a bounty hunter or whatever it may be, and then gave Andy Serkis and that team a film budget to make something that big and epic, you could literally have the first realistic, interactive movie experience with actors and performances that just click together.
Yeah.
We had something like LA Noire where we had a whole bunch of actors perform, and it was really well done, but the problem was things just didn't click all the way, and the way that you actually tried to solve cases didn't work so well. Having something like this, honestly, I could even see a noir-style game where it's done completely in black and white or whatever, and you have these actors and performances there doing stuff like that, but just something with Andy Serkis and Ninja Theory together, I think that would be the key.
Yeah, it's great because Ninja Theory's proven themselves, and they've proven that they work really well with Andy Serkis.
Yes.
Next up, we have Undead Labs.
Yeah. Now, Undead Labs did State of Decay 1 and 2.
Yeah, State of Decay 1 and 2. Okay, State of Decay 1, people were pretty big fans of. I never really dove into it that much, but I did follow it to see what the gameplay was like and just the overall game experience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like forging and survival, and of course fending off the undead and bringing back equipment and stuff like that.
And part 2, it was met with a little bit more hesitation. I don't think people felt it was as good as the first game, but the team is still quite talented and capable of doing very big open worlds with a lot of interactive elements.
Yeah, so from their sort of, like you said, open worlds and interactive elements that you're talking about, I would like to see the team sort of take the ideas that they've had with State of Decay and maybe like bring them into, like we were discussing this before, almost like a original Fortnite sort of gameplay mechanic where people are going out and scavenging, like we've seen in State of Decay, fending off things. Don't necessarily have to be zombies. In fact, I don't want it to be zombies, aliens, other people, whatever. I would like a Purge-like scenario where you got like a bunker, like heavily armored. You're bringing in like crazy cannons and stuff, and you're just trying to maintain, like, let's say your family in like a home. It's not that far off from what State of Decay already was. I would just like to see it with a little less jank.
And sure, and you know what? Saying that we don't want to see zombies in an Undead Labs game seems pretty crazy to begin with, but I just feel that zombies are a very limiting thing in those games, and they don't really have the impact nowadays because zombies have been played out, folks. We've seen so many zombie games. If they can just try something else with the ideas they have with State of Decay, I think it might appeal to more people.
They should team up with Playground Games and have cars be the nemesis or nemesi or nemesis.
Sure.
And it'll be great.
Maybe.
Margaret, the cars! They're running into the house again! Get the car cannons!
No, I'm going to play with that. I'm going to play with that idea. You ready for this?
Yes, please.
Okay?
Please.
What really fun, weird Stephen King film?
Oh, my gosh. Maximum Overdrive. Maximum Overdrive.
State of Decay 3, whatever, not called State of Decay 3.
No. Maximum Overdrive.
Maximum Overdrive.
The game.
That would be really cool.
You gotta fortify your gas station, man.
Yeah, right?
Green Goblin truck's coming.
You can't use vehicles. You have to be careful about using technology.
The blender's attacking your crew.
You have to use very... yeah, that was the thing in the game.
We gotta...
Look, pop machines kill people in that game, right? They were shooting out cans of people.
that movie, yeah.
I think that something like that would be really neat. I'm not saying they do that exactly, obviously, but I think there would be ways to play with that and to make it a bit more interesting. I think whatever they do should be in an open world element because of what their previous games are like.
It's what they're good at. Okay, so the next team that was absorbed or bought up by Microsoft was the developers of We Happy Few, Compulsion Games. This is a relatively young studio. They're still trying to prove themselves. We Happy Few is their first big sort of foray into the gaming.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of great things from We Happy Few, in my opinion.
I played the game.
Yeah.
Well, the last version of the game, I actually played whatever came out,
It left me desiring a lot.
Sure.
How about yourself?
Yeah, I felt that there was a lot of pieces there that didn't click together because I think they tried to make that strange open world experience where it felt very clunky. However, the narrative and the story, the design of the characters, the design of the world was really engaging. And I think you and I are thinking of the same thing.
Yeah, I believe so. So they should carry on with something that takes a lot of those design choices, those story choices, and moves forward with those. I loved their dystopian sort of future 1984 meets the 60s sort of aesthetic. I would love to see something like that again. take out the combat and take out like, or at least change it in some way. In the scavenging elements, the sort of roguelike elements.
Yeah,
I didn't like those.
Those elements I think didn't work well in the game. However, the world I felt very interesting.
Absolutely.
So something more like BioShock, something more like a narrative, or a linear narrative experience. I think where they can tell that story.
Exactly.
Was really good.
Again, we're talking about studios basically taking their experiences and doing the opposite in some ways, and this is one of those in which I think it does need to be streamlined. What I was talking about previously with you beforehand was that maybe we could have a story, okay, like a 1984-esque story where there's like someone who's starting out as like, let's say, a bum on the street, some guy that's hard on, had hard times, and he just works his way through this 1984-like system, going through the government, and the story unravels. And if you want to play through again, there's another person at the very top, and it's his fall from grace, and you're experiencing the story from both sort of patches. We Happy Few had story elements that were from different...
Yes, three different characters.
From 3 different characters. Have these 2 different characters and have them meet maybe at the halfway mark. Hey, what's going on? And then like one person is moving into like the slums, and then the other person is working his way up through the government, and you see all these other stories unraveling around them.
I felt like just before we could see more of the universe of We Happy Few, the game kind of ends like at a point when you're about to see what's out there. I don't want to spoil the game too much, but I could see a We Happy Few sequel come out where they kind of explore that universe if they don't want to completely trash their IP. And I think that something like that would be really cool to kind of just see what is out there, what's next. Because that alternate universe that they were building there of where World War II happened in a different way and World War just went in a unique direction, I think that would be really cool, and I want to see more of that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, again, they're a young studio. One thing that I want to note before we move on is that from the rumors that we've gotten about all these companies being bought up, the people at Microsoft, at Xbox, have basically said, hey, not only are we scooping up you guys, but we're kind of pushing you to talk with other companies, to mingle, to get other ideas, collaborate. So I'm kind of hoping that Compulsion Games can maybe collaborate with some of the other people on this list and maybe get some other ideas.
With unlimited budgets, right? They're capable of doing anything. And speaking of unlimited budgets, this next company, it kind of makes sense when you consider how much hiring they're doing and everything, that they don't have limits.
Yeah, this is the one of the more wild sort of. It's not even an acquisition. This is something that's being built up from the ground floor, right? This is the Initiative. Maybe you've heard about the Initiative. It's bringing together a lot of talented people within the gaming industry. People who've worked on games like Red Dead Redemption, the Tomb Raider, Ratchet and Clank. A lot of talented people are coming together to work on a project. We have no clue.
Yeah.
What exactly it is.
All we know is that they're trying, as far as we can tell, they're trying to build the ultimate team.
Yes.
Now, this could be a really big thing, but many of you classic gamers out there may remember once upon a time there was a company called Ion Storm. And Ion Storm was the same principle. They got a whole bunch of really talented people together to make a bunch of games. What happened? We got Deus Ex. We got a bunch of other games, too. Something like Katana, maybe. So you got something really good, and you got something not so great, but you know what? You still got Deus Ex, so there was that.
You tried, and you had some success, which is cool.
And what I'm thinking is going to happen here is, what we know is they're probably going to be making an open world type of game. We know that they're trying to make something that we assume is going to be exclusive to Microsoft platforms, and definitely not on PlayStation 4, definitely not on Switch. This is something that they're trying to make internally, and if they're going to make the next great open world game that is exclusive to their platform, it's going to have a huge impact.
We do know that they've scooped up Drew Murray, who had worked, he was the director of Sunset Overdrive, and he also worked on Ratchet and Clank, and what was the other, the first-person shooter?
Resistance.
Resistance, yeah, he also worked on Resistance. Now, the core thing I take from all these titles is gunplay and weapons. So
crazy, weird weapons.
Right. When I think blank check, okay, maybe it's an open world game. They said, like, expect the unexpected with what the Initiative is working on. But whatever it is, I want just like endless customization with weapons.
So here's what I'm thinking.
What's that?
I'm thinking the Initiative should make an open world car combat game where you have to not, because remember, all these games have like weapons you can customize. I want to be able to customize my car and customize the weapons on the car. because I have seen brief glimpses of ideas of this in the past.
Mad Max.
Mad Max was really close.
Ubisoft's Mad Max. It was
but
pretty good.
It was pretty good, but
it wasn't quite what it could have been.
But this team here, you've got somebody that made a game where records were being launched out of a gun. Like, I mean, they made some crazy experiences.
Well, yeah,
there.
Ratchet and Clank always had crazy guns. Resistance had really neat guns with like secondary sort
actually
of
really fun. Like, if you didn't like Resistance for everything else it was doing, the gunplay was really amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. So we have no clue what the initiative's working on.
Yeah.
Customization is all that I ask, I guess.
I just want him to take those concepts and ideas that he puts into play, which are really unique and fun, and put them into something like that. I think a car combat game would be really fun because it's an open world thing. It's something that I don't think is being tapped enough right now, and it could make for a really crazy and fun experience. Look, if the initiative has if they have enough money to do whatever, buy the Interstate 76 license, right? Go back to Interstate. Yeah. Just make that a new thing.
You can't let that go.
Oh, I can't. It would just be so great. It'd be so much fun. If you can't do Twisted Metal, do this.
Yeah, and again, they are being pushed to talk to some of the other developers. Playground Games does cars.
Yeah.
Talk to Playground, right? Okay. Kind of last, maybe not last but not least for you, but for me, there's two development teams that I kind of want to combine into one.
Yeah.
So are we on the same page? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I think we are.
At XO18, Microsoft took these guys under the umbrella of Xbox, right? That's Obsidian, and that's In Exile.
Yes.
Now, these are two developers that have done some cool stuff, specifically with one type of game.
Yeah, kind of important.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
All right, now, let me just say this outright. We already know that Obsidian is working on a new RPG, and we're going to be seeing more about this at the Game Awards, okay?
Yeah.
Now, what we're saying is that this was probably in development a little bit before any of this stuff happened.
Definitely.
Okay, so with that in mind, In Exile was started by Brian Fargo. Brian Fargo is the creator of Interplay. Interplay hired a group of people to make a game called Fallout. The people that made Fallout eventually left Interplay to create a new company called Troika. Troika only made one game. Due to the problem that they were using, I think it was the Source engine from Half-Life, they couldn't release their game at the exact time that they needed to, and it got delayed. By the time it did come out, there was a bunch of problems, and the company ended up closing down. However, the game is well-renowned as being one of the most fun games in the world. That was Vampire the Masquerade, and it was good.
Catch your breath.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about two very, very strong developers. Vampire the Masquerade was in kind of semi-open world RPG.
Yes.
I didn't play it, so I got to go off of what
it was really good. It was really good. Bloodlines specifically. But by the way, once that group goes away and Troika closes down, all those people move over and create a new company, and that's called Obsidian. And from Obsidian, we've been getting all of these amazing games recently, from like Fallout New Vegas to that really amazing South Park game, which had no right to be as good as it was.
They did Neverwinter Nights 2 as well. They've Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Yeah. Like, these guys are good. Like, really, really good.
I hope you feel the same way. We want to see these two studios combined because they're so RPG driven, so narrative driven, and they've done so many cool things with the sort of North American style RPG. If they combined forces, we'd be getting a lot of the people that have been making or had made good Fallout-ish games, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but if the folks from In Exile, Brian Fargo specifically, he was part of the team responsible for the first Fallout, second Fallout.
He literally owned Interplay, right?
And then Fallout Tactics.
Yeah, and there's also Wasteland that he was involved in as well. And the folks at In Exile made Wasteland 2 most recently, so they're familiar with RPGs.
Obsidian.
Yeah.
Obsidian did Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah. You just see what I'm trying to say here, folks? We're not saying a new Fallout game is going to come out, okay?
They don't own the license.
Actually, you know what? After Fallout 76, maybe you buy it on a discount. But I'm saying, like, look, what I'm trying to say here is that these folks are good at making RPGs, and it doesn't matter what the world is.
Yeah.
What if they made a new kind of Wasteland game that was a first-person game, utilizing some of the mechanics that we've seen from the new Fallout games, but refining it to a point that's really, really good? I could see a continuation of the Wasteland universe in a unique way to make it a lot more fun. However, I feel that the way that the art style works for Wasteland isn't as refined as what we've seen with Fallout, because Fallout has a very cool art style and it has like a unique universe. With that being said,
blank check.
Blank check, and the person that's working at Obsidian right now on their new RPG is the guy that created the art style for Fallout, one of them anyway, and he was also one of the main story arc creators of Fallout 2. This guy has had a huge impact on the game industry, and what I'm so excited about is, okay, you've got a blank check, you can do whatever you want. Bloodlines 2. See what I'm saying? If you can go and get that Vampire Masquerade license, because I don't know who has it now, but just get it, buy it. You've got a blank check. I don't care how much it costs. Buy that and bring it in. It would be fantastic to see all those people that love that original game come back into a new universe. And then the next game after that, maybe it's something Fallout-like. But apparently we're already getting a Fallout-like RPG.
Yeah. Well, whether they wind up with a vampire game or a Fallout-style game, whatever it is, I'm leaning towards RPG, and the talent behind both of these teams, they'll make something incredible, I'm sure.
Yes. I mean, look, I know a lot of folks out there forget sometimes how important Interplay was back in the day, but Interplay made so many amazing games, and the people that are at Obsidian right now have worked with Brian Fargo for years and years. So to see these two groups come together to make something amazing,
again,
just
this is just our idea.
Yeah,
We're not saying they are coming together. It's a grain of salt.
It's getting the dream team back together. So it wouldn't matter what they make; they could literally make a solitaire game, just recreating what solitaire is.
It would probably still have really good RPG mechanics.
It would have the best storyline ever.
Compelling storyline, great comedy. Great art.
Yeah.
Solitaire, 2020 on the Xbox Scarlet.
But why do you think Microsoft is talking about all this stuff around this time period? Because apparently the Xbox One X is doing really good.
That's what we're hearing. We still have to see the numbers, but Matt Piscatella from the MPD Group is saying that the Xbox One is selling very well compared to its competitors in a fairly short life cycle, lifespan. We have to wait again to see exactly what that is.
Because we don't know what the exact numbers are, but he's saying it's like a revival of the brand almost, right? And one of the reasons why that could be happening is because in Red Dead Redemption 2 and some other very popular games that are on consoles right now, in the case of Red Dead Redemption 2, if you want to play that the best way possible, you get an Xbox One X. Even if you don't own a 4K screen, right, you can actually just get this system. It will run it at the best frame rate possible, and it will look the best because downscaling from 4K to 1080p on a monitor or TV, it looks really good, looks really sharp.
Yeah.
So they've made what most would consider the most powerful video game console on the planet right now, and it has some of the best experiences of games at the moment.
Yeah, not only that, they're advertising their Xbox, was it All Access Pass, and the Xbox One X, the way that they're advertising that console, backwards compatibility, like I wasn't sure whether or not we would see a bounce back, but it looks like we are, which is great. So and with news like this, to me this sounds like more of the minglings of what will become the next sort of console generation.
Sure.
So I'm not expecting to see these necessarily on the Xbox One, but depending on when the next iteration of consoles is going to come out, then it'll be a thing. It's interesting to see some of this stuff come out. So, Xbox talking about some of these things because some of their competitors are a little more tight-lipped, right? Nintendo is being a little better nowadays. Sony is kind of shutting all the doors.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're seeing Sony not talk too much about 2019 because we just assume that they're getting ready for their next system. And Sony, to be fair, they don't have to do anything. They just have to sit there because, like, their system is doing so well. When it comes to Nintendo, we're going to be talking more about this later on, but we believe that Nintendo is going to be having a bigger year for 2019. But when it comes to Microsoft, they have nowhere to go but up, and it looks like up is where they're going.
We said before they had to fight for it. They had to get the messaging out. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the messaging working, and we're seeing a bounce back. And now we're seeing developers that are given carte blanche, you blank canvas and a lot of money. Do what you got to do and make our next console work.
Yeah, folks, if you're sleeping on Microsoft right now, you are not paying attention. Well, these guys have tons of money that they're throwing into the ring. They've got the most value on their system. They have the most powerful system. You can get their system for cheap. You can get a bunch of games practically for the least amount of money imaginable. Games Pass is doing really well. They're giving away a bunch of stuff on Xbox Live Gold. The games are best played on their system. I mean, it really is getting to this point where they're trying to have this huge impact. Whatever they do next is going to make big waves. And if they've got these core teams working to make huge games that are going to be exclusive to the platform, you're going to see a huge power play for first-party initiatives. Because if Microsoft is hell-bent on making this work, you could possibly see them try to take the Nintendo route of things, where they have a bunch of first-party groups making games for them that are focused on the quality and a new kind of Microsoft quality that we've never seen before.
That would be a bit of the best of both worlds, because they would have third-party support and they would have wonderful first-party games as well, which would be just about perfect.
Are they going to be able to achieve it, or is it going to be all a pipe dream that doesn't actually deliver? Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. What games do you think that these companies are going to be working on, and what rich dream projects would you actually like to see them make? Let us know what you think.